Coming up on Mountain News this morning, emotions are high in the state capitol after General Assembly decides to override Governor Andy Beshear's veto of a bill that will impact transgender health care. And Kentucky educators continue to look for solutions to prevent tragedy from taking place on school grounds.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Alrighty, it's coming up on 6 o'clock here on your Thursday. I'm Dakota Makris. Good morning to you. Let's take it on over to Brandon for a look at that forecast. Brandon, I don't know what our issues are this morning. I can hardly read what's in front of me. You were, not in it this morning either. I don't know.
It's just one of those days, even though it's going to be a beautiful day, I didn't sleep well last night. It's just kind of catching up. So we're just trying to get through and get going.
We'll get a second wind eventually.
Exactly. May not be during the morning news, but we'll get there.
We'll get there, yeah.
All right, let's take a look at our forecast today. It's starting off on a calm note this morning. It's just a bit chilly as you head out the door. Grab your jackets. Current conditions outside the WYMT studios, 20s and 30s out there this morning. Looks like now 25 in Monticello is the cold spot, but that's an airport sensor. It's always trending a little colder. So the Mattis sensor down there a little bit warmer, but most of the region trying to show 20s over in Jonesville and Clintwood. I'd say that's our colder spots. And then you see Prestonsburg, Jackson, and Logan all at 39 this morning. So between basically upper 20s and upper 30s. You may need a second to quickly scrape off the frost or get those cars warmed up a little bit. Regardless, we are still in the 30s, but we're heading into the 60s this afternoon. Sun should be up pretty quickly. I saw a bright, almost full moon out there this morning as I was coming to work. So just be careful out there and watch out for ongoing road construction across parts of the region as well. Dakota?
Well, we are continuing to following a situation in the southwest part of the state this morning. Several people are expected to be dead after two helicopters from Fort Campbell crashed in Trigg County. The crash happened just before 10 o'clock Wednesday night when crew members were flying two HH-60 Black Hawk helicopters during a routine training mission. Those helicopters were with the 101st Airborne Division. Fort Campbell officials have not confirmed any deaths or the conditions of the crew members. Kentucky State Police says the two helicopters crashed in a field area. A perimeter was established around the debris field, and the few people in the area were asked to evacuate. We'll keep you updated on the situation, and we hope to bring you a news conference on our Facebook page later this morning. Intense moments at the Kentucky Capitol yesterday as the General Assembly voted to override Governor Andy Beshear's veto of controversial legislation opponents call anti-transgender, from rallies and protests outside the Capitol to even shouting at lawmakers in chambers. Emotions ran high. Some protesters were cited for criminal trespassing. Chad Hedrick has the latest.
Disorder in the Kentucky House of Representatives Wednesday as lawmakers voted to override Governor Andy Beshear's veto of Senate Bill 150.
We have created an environment of hate, and then we look at them like there's something wrong with them.
As House Democrats stood on the House floor, dozens of protesters standing against the legislation shouted chants. 19 were arrested and escorted out by Kentucky State Police. The arrests came after a day of rallies on both sides of the issue before lawmakers voted to override.
Students at young ages in our publicly funded schools are being told they can be a different gender, and perhaps they were born in the wrong body. Tell me what that does to a child to think they were born wrong.
Inside the Capitol, supporters of the legislation spoke in the rotunda at a Protect Parental Rights rally. Meanwhile, outside, opponents rallied before going in to continue voicing opposition. Supporters of the bill say the legislation prohibits sex change procedures and hormone treatments for children. It will also not allow the mandated use of pronouns. Opponents call it hate.
Let's not let 1% of the population determine our destiny here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. You all are stronger and you're better than that.
I stand here today as the first openly LGBTQ elected in this body. It's very hurtful, it's very sad, and it's a shame.
That was Chet Hedrick reporting. Rebecca Blankenship, who is the director of Banned Conversion Therapy Kentucky, said this legislation has, quote, sentenced many to death. She said her organization is actively coordinating with other groups to plan a lawsuit. Part of the bill goes into effect immediately, including preferred pronouns in schools and policies regarding bathrooms. The part about gender-affirming health care for trans youth goes into effect in 90 days. West Virginia Governor Jim Justice has also signed a bill banning gender-affirming care for minors. At least 10 other states that have enacted laws restricting treatments for transgender youth. Unlike measures in other states, West Virginia's law contains a unique exemption. It permits doctors to prescribe medical therapy if a teenager is considered at risk for self-harm or suicide. Several Kentucky organizations who are for and against Senate Bill 150 are reacting to the override of Governor Beshear's veto. The Fairness Campaign Director Chris Hartman released a statement saying, quote, "While we lost the battle in the legislature, our defeat is temporary. We will not lose in court, and we are winning in so many other ways." Thousands of Kentucky kids came to the Capitol today to make their voices heard against the worst anti-trans bill in the nation. They are our hope for a Kentucky future that is more fair, more just, and more beautifully diverse and accepting than ever before, end quote. In support of the legislature's override, the Family Foundation also released a statement. Executive Director David Walls said, quote, "Kentuckians overwhelmingly support Senate Bill 150's common sense student privacy protections in restrooms and locker rooms, along with the rights of parents to have a say in their child's education. We commend the Kentucky General Assembly for taking action to override Governor Beshear's veto. Kentuckians will not soon forget that Governor Beshear turned his back on children and parents in Kentucky," end quote. Not only did the Republican-led Kentucky legislature override the veto of Senate Bill 150, they voted to override all of the governor's vetoes, including Senate Bill 65. The bill strikes down the governor's emergency order that expanded Medicaid coverage for dental, vision, and hearing care in the state. And it impacts tens of thousands of Kentuckians who now don't have access to that form of health care. Kentucky education leaders are taking a closer look at school safety after the recent school shooting in Nashville. Investigators say the shooter was able to shoot through the doors of the elementary school. Kentucky Department of Education Commissioner Dr. Jason Glass says that every time a school shooting takes place, there is an analysis of security measures. He says there's not just one solution to these events.
I wish I had easy answers. There aren't any. When we look at one of the major challenges is the easy availability of weapons in our country. The United States is a vast outlier when it comes to mass murders and school shootings, and we're a vast outlier when it comes to how easy it is to acquire firearms. So that's, I think, something that we're going to have to wrestle with as a country.
The commissioner has a student advisory council that has presented its recommendations to improve school safety. Those recommendations include promoting a stop tip line, improving intervention rates, and supporting gun control. After the school shooting in Nashville, Congress remains at an impasse when it comes to passing gun control legislation. CBS's Nicole D'Antonio has more from Capitol Hill.
Outrage over the Nashville school shooting has reignited the debate over gun control, a pattern that repeats with each new atrocity.
How much blood must be spilt? How many children must be killed until we do the right thing?
But angry words have not led to action in Congress. Tennessee Republicans shifted the conversation away from guns altogether.
What this does is highlight some of the mental health issues, the mental health crisis we have in this country.
The tragedy that happened in my state was the result of a depraved person, somebody very, very sick.
In the face of Republican opposition to any measure restricting access to guns, House Democrats called for Congress to put people over politics.
There is no excuse to allow our streets to be flooded with weapons of war.
Democrats Ed Markey and Alyssa Slotkin introduced a bill to fund research into the causes of gun violence, alongside school shooting survivors who described their trauma.
My classmates and I frantically grabbed makeshift weapons, including scissors, tape dispensers, and a hockey stick, anything we could find at the moment.
Firearms have become the leading cause of death for children in the U.S., leading President Biden to renew pressure on Congress to ban assault weapons.
So I'm going to keep calling it out, remind people that they're not acting.
Even before the tragedy in Nashville, polls showed most Americans are dissatisfied with the nation's gun laws as they watch more heartbroken parents bury their children. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
.609 here on this Thursday morning. We continue to track some cooler temperatures across the region. Let's go to those, and you'll see there 20s and 30s out the door this morning. 30 Irvin, Manchester, 28 Jonesville, 29 Clintwood, but upper 30s, close to 40 there. Jackson over toward Logan there this morning, and 38 Prestonsburg and Pikeville, also down toward Monticello as well. So just be aware that you need to bundle up there just a little bit, get you a little extra coffee as you head out the door. Maybe some max warming needed in some areas. First Alert weather app, you're going to need that the next couple of days, especially as we go into tomorrow night, seeing the possibility for some stronger storms. You can track those and get alerts as they're issued. Sunshine, though, today, not much to track, and temperatures will top out in the mid-60s this afternoon. Dakota?
All right, Brendan, thank you so much. It's 6:10. When we come back here on Mountain News this morning, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is set to return to work in the coming weeks after seeking help for issues he's been having with his mental health.